This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from ACOMAF and includes mentions of Garden State, The Craft, Practical Magic, and The Fifth Element.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing a cult classic favorite movie of mine, a first watch for Jessica, and very on theme for Valentine's Day. This is, of course, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Jessica, I'm just dying to know everything.
It was so smart. And right off the bat, like, I don't know if it was just like the filmmaker, like just from like a cinematography point of view, but it reminded me of Garden State. But I think it's because it was probably like you have the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, you have it was the same time. This came out in 2005, that came out in 2004. Jim Carrey. Wow. I have only known him as a comedic actor. I think when I saw The Truman Show, I was so young that it was probably one of those things that I had, like, the adults had me watch because I didn't understand anything, and I never watched it again as an adult. So I've only known him in his comedic roles, and what talent! I mean, everybody in this movie.
Yeah, like everybody in this movie. I was thinking about this earlier in my shower thoughts, that I have made it clear that, like, Kate Winslet is everything, right? Like, I love her.
Everything she does, she is the movie.
Yes. Like this, and this movie, like, she shines. I believe she was nominated for an Oscar for this movie, but oh my God, she's just so good. And Jim Carrey this is my favorite role for him. Like, I love him in a lot of things, but this specifically, he's perfect and understated and shy and like insecure and like a little boy a lot of the times. And it's just so different and beautiful from him. Ugh. But the cast. So what did you know going into this?
That I just knew about Jim Carrey and then Kate Winslet. I pretty much went into this blind. And then about 15 minutes in, I decided to read, like, the brief description. And there was two different descriptions that I was given. So I go, like, I thought it might be a sci-fi movie, but it's not. However, it gives me lots of, there's a Black Mirror episode that's similar to, like, the erasing of your memories and your past, and it reminded me a lot of that, which makes it feel like this movie was ahead of its time. Like, now you could talk about it in regular conversation, but I feel like in 2004 that would not have been the case unless you're part of a very niche, specific sci-fi fantasy community. I know.
That was me. It's me. Yeah, so I saw this when it came out, and it changed my life, obviously. So I didn't see this in theaters. I saw it like a year after, when it was on, like, released on DVD or whatever. Mm-hmm. I saw it then, and it was obviously mind-blowing. But it was the first time that I had seen a relationship like this, with the destruction of a relationship like this, but the bickering and the fighting and so, like, now we have the very fantastic fight in All Too Well with Taylor Swift. It's very similar to what is happening in the fights here. Mm-hmm. Obviously this, way before. It was the first time I'd seen this, and I was just like, oh my God, okay. I recognize this.
Yeah, and I feel like there's so much. It's the relationship, the fall, like the rise and the demise of a relationship. And it's betrayed so beautifully. Like there's a part like within the first 10 minutes of the film, Jim Carrey says, "Why do I fall in love with every woman I see who gives me the slightest bit of attention?" And right before we had started recording, I said that line just reminded me so much of Feyre with Tamlin and, you know, her confessing this to Rhys and ACOMAF. And I feel like there's many people who can relate to that when you can look at when you can do that self-reflection and realize, you know, the growth that you've had in those moments after a relationship and when you have that emotional maturity to reflect.
I don't know how to phrase this. So does this movie have a happy ending?
We don't know. I like that's what like it's so rhetorical, right? Do we want to outline the premise of the movie before we get into it? Because I feel like there's a question that I want to ask before we get into the episode, but do you want to kind of summarize it?
Okay, I summarize it. Eternal Sunshine is a sci-fi dramedy that is about the rise and fall of a relationship between a manic pixie dream girl and a very shy man. And at the end of this relationship, the manic pixie dream girl gets her memories erased, and then her ex-boyfriend finds out about it. He also does it, and then shenanigans ensue. How's that?
Okay, that works.
Right?
Like, so without giving anything away.
Right. Like,
so that being said, would you have had the procedure that Kate and Jim Carrey have?
This is a really fantastic question, and I would really love to answer it at the end of this episode. Okay. I want it to like stew in the back of my head while I talk this out.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we will answer that question. We will not forget. No. We will not forget. I'm going to write a sticky note that says answer the question. Okay. So you said, Jess, that you looked into what this movie was about like 15 minutes in. Now that's because this is a long, like cold open, right? We have a really long scene with them with no explanation, no titles, no nothing. What did we feel here? Like, you had no idea what was going on. Like,
I felt like right off the bat, I go, I love how, you know, I feel like sometimes people go, oh, Valentine's Day is, you know, and he says it, is this capitalistic holiday made up by greeting cards, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people, and then you know what? He straight up had a no bones day. He was not going to go. He was not going to go to work. He calls his boss. And I mean, talk about how you could tell it's still dated. People had cell phones, but they didn't use them as regularly as they did. So he's calling his boss from the payphone. And he goes, fuck it. I think it's food poisoning. And goes on his way. And then, you know, I liked the cold open. I was just wondering, I was just like, okay, where is this going? Mm-hmm. You know? And everything in that moment, I think we've all been there. Where you're like, it's just, and it doesn't necessarily mean Valentine's Day. It's just like, it's that kind of day. You don't want to go to work. You just need to focus. But, you need a mental health day. And that's what he did. He took a mental health day and went out to Montauk in the middle of February.
And why did he do that? Let's really get into why he did this. Okay. So the first shot in the movie opens up on Joel in bed in pajamas he doesn't recognize, and we hear doors closing and like driving away in the background. Okay. And then he's like weirded out through, you know, whatever. He sees the car, he doesn't get it, you know, on and on and on and on. He's at the train station. He has the day, he pieces out, right? Where does he go? He goes to Montauk. Why? Because, you know, it's the circle because she told him to in the memory. Where does he go? He goes to the house in Montauk.
That she took him to.
Yeah, that they went to on their first date. Okay. It's amazing. It's so amazing. And then it has, you know, Clementine likes nice, and Joel keeps saying nice over and over again.
But then she gives him a hard time about, like, don't you know any other words besides nice?
But which is really interesting because this whole scene is really awkward, right? It's Joel and it's Clementine, and they're both like out there. They don't know why they're in the same spot.
It feels very like, I feel like before knowing what I know, it feels very fate serendipitous. Like there's no way they just keep having these chance encounters.
And it's also very, and I'm speaking specifically to them in the train, it's also very a stunted conversation between them two, right? She's like, she snaps at him for no reason, kind of on and off. And it's like, why? He's like a stranger, but she's having an off day because her identity is in a crisis, and he's having an off day because he just woke up and has like the equivalent of a bad hangover, and they're both like in the spot, it's all really beautiful. And in these scenes, he is doing exactly what he said he would do. I don't know if you picked up on that. So, it's important to know, I have all these notes. It's important to know in this opening scene, she has blue hair.
Right.
Okay. She has blue hair with faded roots here. Joel says, I don't know any jokes about your name. I don't know Huckleberry Hound. He's already doing it different, right? Because in their last memory, it's like, no, I would do it all different.
Right.
Yeah. And he is actually doing it different. He's not making the joke about her name.
But that was something that when I rewatched, I picked up on that. But then it made me wonder, was he doing it differently because of that reason? Or was it erased that he made the joke so he couldn't make the joke again? Like he didn't remember to not make the joke.
I think that, and this is a really good point to make. So I have not read any analysis on this movie, right, because I enjoy the way that this movie makes me feel. I enjoy just my own watch of it. I don't want anyone's opinion to taint it of all of it. So the way that I read this is even if all of that stuff with Clem, even if all of that didn't happen, he still had his mother singing that song to him in the sink as a child. Right. So he still has that memory. So whatever happens is he's consciously choosing it.
It's almost like he's consciously consciously / subconsciously trying to make a difference.
To do it differently. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because that base memory is not going to go anywhere.
No, and he has a lot. I mean, you realize that in those quote unquote flashback scenes of a lot of unresolved childhood trauma that he has with his mother. I mean, when Clem isn't giving him attention, and then you find out all he wants is attention from it. Why isn't anybody paying attention to him? And the one person who did was the mom's friend or neighbor, in which he assigns Clem that role because she's wait, who am I? And he's oh, I know this memory. And he's realizing those little, he might not necessarily be connecting those traumas, but he recognizes what he is looking for and what he's seeking, unintentionally seeking out in others.
And that scene is beautiful for a lot of reasons, specifically the way that it is practically shot.
Right. It's very minimal CGI.
Yeah.
I know you didn't read a lot of stuff, but I did read some behind the scenes stuff, and it was just minimal CGI and perspective something it's called. I don't remember.
That's why it holds up so well. It doesn't date. It's perfect.
That's with what I was going to say practical magic, but when we watched The Craft, it was all practical SFX and not CGI, except for the figures.
The Fifth Element is also very similar to that. So in the way that Joel is able to vocalize these childhood feelings, I find very fascinating. So he's gosh, I just want her to hold me. And then he's it's really weird how strong that urge is. Why is that urge so strong? I just want to be held. I find that just so amazing. And such something that is not talked about at all.
But you see that happening reflected in the little mini flashbacks with his relationship with Clementine. Also, him holding her or she's holding him, and they're just at its core, he's almost like projecting his traumas onto her in their relationship.
Mm-hmm. And she is such the perfect example of a manic pixie dream girl.
Well, she is very self-aware that is her character too. Like, she knows who she is as a person in their relationship like that.
And I will be lying if I said that I did not want to be her. I wanted all the hair colors. I wanted to work at Barnes & Noble. I wanted to be like that person. I didn't necessarily want the potato people, but I wanted, I wanted that. Specifically kind of, we get Joel, who's quiet and shy, and he says like, I am like uninteresting. Like I don't have a lot to say. My journal is like blank. There's just not a lot going on. And, he kind of says like, she makes him feel alive and all of this stuff. And then, we get their date at Lake Charles, which is like so wonderful. And then we get our first like kind of introduction to Elijah Wood, being weird outside of the car. And I'm only bringing this up because this is the scene that we like loop back to at the end. So this opening is the beautiful like tie kind of to tie up the story.
Oh, I'm so excited! You have a movie that you haven't seen yet where there is something like that, and I know you'll be seeing it soon. Where there is that circle and tie, and I'm not going to tell you which one it is.
Ooh, yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. Okay, so we get Joel, and we get Joel being like so heartbroken. I can't express the way that it makes me feel when I watch Jim Carrey as Joel go into Barnes & Noble with his Valentine's Day present and try to give it to her. And she doesn't recognize him, and he is distraught.
And he's so confused. He goes, it's like she looked right through me, had no idea who I was.
Yeah. And it's also like not, he's angry about it, but it's not like he could tell that it wasn't like a malicious. He was just like, it was like, I wasn't
right. She wasn't
like, it wasn't like what happened. It's just so, oh my God. And then his friends, oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Editor Sam is very conscious of the page turning of my notes. So if you hear shuffling, I'm sorry. I have pages and pages of notes. So Lacuna. What is Lacuna?
So Lacuna is it's the medical group in whatever neurological way they do it with science and tech. They remove specific memories in which you choose not to remember anymore. So in the waiting room, you have patients with not memorabilia, but like contents of like past relationships. And that could be in any form. Like there was a lady in the waiting room and she had this whole box full of her long time, lifetime pet that she had. And then you have this other person who has like bowling trophies. So it's whatever is significant to you and what is making you like, I don't want to remember this anymore. That is what like that's what this place does. It will genetically modify your memory on a neurological level. I mean, even Kirsten Dunst, she's the receptionist, and at one point she's like trying to alter somebody's appointment, and she goes, "That's our policy. We don't clear your memories more than 3 times in 1 week." So you're like, at first I thought it was 3 times in a year, and I go, okay, that makes sense. But then she's like 3 times in a week. Like, I get people have embarrassing moments, but damn.
We see Kirsten as Mary printing out the cards, and the cards is how Joel finds out about Lacuna in the first place, because the cards go out to all the friends that say like, this person has had this other person removed. Don't mention them ever, like ever. Right. And the reason that the friends give is like, oh, well, Clem, she's impulsive. And I find that interesting because that's the second time that word has been used. The first time is when Joel, pieces out on work. He's like, I took a train out to Montauk. I don't know why I do that. I'm not an impulsive person. Mm-hmm. So we have him like saying, I'm not impulsive. And then we have Clem here, you know, some other people talking about her being like, oh, well, she did this thing. You know how she is. She's impulsive, you know, kind of just like drives home the Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing. Mm-hmm. So they do, as you said, like the brain mapping and stuff. And we see like baby Mark Ruffalo, like.
And baby Mark Ruffalo's butt.
And his butt. Oh, he's just adorable in
his
this.
Little hulky butt.
I know. I hope people like love him, like give love to him for this. Right after this, we get the fight. We get their breakup. We get Joel saying, this is the last time that I saw you. And we get a timeline here. And the timeline.
That's when, and it starts working back from there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and the timeline here is, Clementine has like tangerine hair with like roots. So it's like faded, right? And so, so it's like faded orange, really. And we get this horrific fight where Joel says the like worst possible thing, and I absolutely would have left him too. Like, oh my God.
Where she goes, oh, you're wondering were you wondering if I was out fucking somebody? He goes, I wasn't wondering that because I know you were, because that's how you get people's attention.
No, it goes, isn't that how you get people to like you?
Oh.
Which, like, oh my God. Like, I cannot. And then he chases after her. And then that's when everything starts to like, and that's when it kind of moves into like, okay, this is going to be kind of a weird sci-fi thing. Because the sets, start to like crumble around as the memories start to.
The sets crumble. There's a lot of fading. Then there's the echoing.
Yeah.
So that was like that's how I knew he was in his own mind at certain things. Like he was in his mind, almost like astro projecting into the scenario that was happening.
And also a spotlight.
Right.
There's also a spotlight on,
And somehow. And it's a testament to the film and the writers and the filmmakers and everybody involved that it doesn't feel sci-fi. I think we're so used to, when you think of sci-fi and fantasy, it has to be futuristic and space and all, whatever preconceived notions that come with that genre. And that's not what this is.
No. So this is Charlie Kaufman, and he also did Being John Malkovich, which is very kind of similar to this. He did Adaption too. Very same vibes. But no, I'll save it. I'll save it for the end. So one of my favorite parts here is when Joel decides that he doesn't want to forget. When he starts like screaming in his head.
When he's actively trying to make that choice in his subconscious.
Yeah. When he's like, do you hear me? I don't want to do this anymore. He's like screaming inside of his head, but then it cuts to his apartment and he's just like asleep. Mm-hmm. And, and then Elijah and Mark have their whole very unethical conversation. Damn Elijah Wood, you creepy.
Yeah.
Patrick.
Yeah, we don't like Patrick.
No.
There's not one point where he redeems himself. Even Mark Ruffalo was like, dude, that's fucked up. And there's no consent. There's absolutely no consent going on in that scenario.
No, not
and
at
in
all.
a way, it's almost like he's also being Cyrano, and the fact of he's utilizing somebody else's, literally the person that she was in love with before, and she doesn't remember, and using it all against her because he's just like infatuated with her.
Well, and that kind of is something that Kate plays so beautifully in this. So when Kate has blue hair is when she's going through her like identity, right? Because and who's helping that along? Fucking Patrick, because he stole all of Joel's stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So he's using the exact same lines. So Clem is like, what the fuck is going on? Like a deja vu, and I feel like wrong, right?
And because he's there, she's reaching out to him, freaking out, like, I feel weird, this, that, the other thing is happening. And he's there the whole time, not realizing he's the reason she's like all fucked about it all.
Yeah, he like makes it weirder. Oh my God, it's this whole thing. So so Joel, as you pointed out, we start at the last time that we see Clem and like move backwards. So we get their fights, right? They have the baby fight. How awkward.
But she's right. Like, he's mumbling things under his breath. She's probably at that point in the relationship where she's like, I'm done with your mumbling. You can't just bring up something like that and disregard it, saying we're talking about it later, because then it'll never be talked about later, because she's already so frustrated at that point. And she rightfully says, if this isn't something that we want to talk about, why are we not ending this now? Because I think people forget that it's okay if you don't want kids. That's not what it's about. But you can still love somebody so much and want very different things. And ultimately, that's going to, you have to kind of sever the tie there, no matter how much it hurts, because in the end, that's not what either of you want.
It's such a devastating fight, too. And, they have it on the street. They have it in public. And which is interesting because in the tapes, Joel says, like, I was embarrassed to be with her in public, and, it's just
I'm getting some strong Reed vibes. You know how I feel about Reed.
It's just like, wow, gosh, and oh my God. But then, I can see both sides of this relationship. That is the thing, because like my gut wants to go with Clem, but I can also feel the frustration here with right. Joel too. Like I get it,
I don't know if it's because I'm watching this now as opposed to if I had watched it when it came out in 2005, that you understand where both people are coming from. And you know how sometimes when you're reading relationships or you're watching relationships, there's a clear person where you're like, I'm team so-and-so and I'm team so-and-so. I didn't feel like I was maybe there were certain moments like when he made that comment to her and they're like last time he saw her fight, but I didn't feel like anybody was the bad guy. You just see so much of it. And even when, part of going to Lacuna was saying like, well, tell us what you remember. They are both very much in a bitter, volatile, worst versions of themselves, end of a relationship version of themselves. So when they're recounting all these memories, they're not remembering the best parts, like, when the relationship was good, it was really good. They're remembering everything that has been so hurtful and harmful that brought them in to that very negative state. So I don't think that was fair. They were like saying some things that were hurtful. And then obviously at the end of the film, they wind up hearing what each other were saying. But it was very much like I almost felt like that's what they were saying emotionally and out of hurt and frustration. Maybe not because they truly thought that.
Joel says something to Clem when she has like tangerine hair, no roots, when they're in bed, which is right. Like the picture that you see, like when they're both kind of like that and she's holding the mug. Like that is the picture that comes to mind when you think of Eternal Sunshine, that and like the movie poster. But Joel says like constantly talking isn't communicating. And she gets so angry. She's like, I don't do that. I don't do that. And you can tell that he's like, yeah, you do. And you can tell also that she's kind of like, I do. But I also feel, again, like not, but like is he right? Yes. But I do understand where she's coming from like personally, where you're kind of filling that void because if the other person isn't going, because she says, you don't talk, you don't share, you don't communicate, like you don't. And that's where he says the comment, which absolutely makes sense. But it's like she's filling that communication void because she's making up for both of them. And she's like, I tell you everything. I tell you everything that pops into my head. You tell me nothing. Like, what do you write about in your journal if you don't have like, what is it? Like, if you don't have any like thoughts or passions or love, like, what is it? And I just find it so interesting because she says that comment. And when you go back and he's going through all of his stuff to get rid of her, like she is everywhere. Like he draws her, he paints her, he writes about her, like all of this stuff. She's everywhere. They have the dining dead scene, which I find is really interesting because Joel they're out to dinner. And she's like, we're not talking. Like, are we those couples that just like don't talk anymore? Like like, what is it? He's like looking around and like other couples aren't talking. He's like, is this us? Like, are we, and he's realizing he is realizing that it's not working anymore. Right. Like this is him kind of being like, oh my God. But then he's also starting to fight in his head because he starts to fight after this. But this scene cuts to Patrick giving Clem, who Clem has blue hair now, Joel's gift, his Valentine's Day gift, which
is fucking creepy. It's so unethical.
It is so bad. It's so bad. And what is so heartbreaking about this is she opens it and you can tell she's like, people know, her face is just like, I'm going to hate this.
But as a viewer, when she says, oh my gosh, like nobody has ever gotten me jewelry, let alone jewelry that I relate to, that gets me. And you know, it's from Joel.
Yeah. Like and that's what he went to give her when she had no memory. And you're just like, you dick. Like, oh my God, you're so, oh my gosh, you're just awful. You're just awful. So right after this, we're cutting to when Clem has what I'm going to call red hair. It could be like her deep like tangerine color, you know, but I see it in my head as like rose Titanic red. Okay. That's what I call it. So my notes, I had tangerine. I was like, no. It's more like red. And red is like when they're happy, right? Like that is like their happiest. And it's when I start to cry because I cry so hard in the blanket scene. I might even tear up now
when they're under the covers.
Yeah. And she's like, when I was a kid, like, you know, I felt invisible and, you know, nobody listened to me and I was ugly. So I had a doll and I named her Clementine. Like, oh my God. Like, and if I could just make her pretty, then I could be pretty. And then what does Joel do? He like comes over. He's like, you're pretty, you're pretty, you're pretty. And then like Joel, you know, like conscious, like Joel in there, it starts to fight. And he's like, let me keep this one.
That's the moment that he's like, please not. That's when he starts to fight. He's like, not this memory. Please don't
let me keep this one.
Yeah, this
one.
My
God. Oh, I'm like tearing up thinking about it. That's when it like really gets me. It's like, oh my God. But then you have like the lake, right? Just my notes here are just like Joel fighting for it. Joel, like happy on the lake.
Yeah, he was happy in the lake, but that was the moment that he had to find her and her subconscious to get her to fight also.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So like when they start running, right?
Yes.
Like,
and then like, and it hasn't clicked with her yet because she's still, maybe like her memories were like just further removed, but she didn't process that they weren't together in that moment. And she just was like, wait, why do we keep running? Like we keep running everywhere. Why do we keep running?
So one of my favorite scene in the whole movie is the blanket scene, obviously. Like, but one of my other favorite scenes is the rowboat, when they're in the rowboat and then it starts to like rain inside when they're just about to like really start running. But you know, they're in the woods and you know, that's when Clem, and I find it so funny because Clem is the one that is like, just take me somewhere deep and hide me. Like she has to be the one to like, no, this could work. Like just take me there. I just love it. But one of my favorite scenes is when it does start to rain inside and both of their faces are just like, it's
because that was the moment they realized what they were actively doing.
Yeah.
Like subconsciously was working.
Yes. It's so incredibly, incredibly beautiful. And then because then it starts to really cut now. The movie then starts to get like a little chaotic and that's when the notes start to go. But we cut back to Clem and she's got blue hair and that's when Patrick, he starts to say like nice. And she's like, what is this with nice? And she starts like freaking out.
Or how about when, well, that's with her freaking out. But then when Joel is under, but he keeps hearing the external voices of Patrick and Mark Ruffalo. And he's like seeing something at some point where, oh, that Patrick was on the phone with Clem and it says Tangerine, and that was his nickname. That was Joel's nickname for Clementine. And that's when he goes, that's not anywhere. And that's another thing where he goes, I think the fuck not. You trick ass bitch.
Yeah. And I do like how, like, different times throughout the movie, whenever Joel runs in to like the doctor or Clem, he's like, he stole your underwear. Like, he stole your underwear. Like, oh, it's so funny. Oh, I just love it. I love it so much. I love watching them as kids. Right? Like, but then we get like the trauma, like, the hammer and the bird, like, oh my God, the trauma. But then we get the title of the movie in the movie, right? Like,
they did the thing.
Yeah, they did the thing. Actually, that's what it said in my notes. It said the thing. But it's so true. It's so true. And then we get this whole thing with Mary and the doctor. So tell me about this, because this part of the movie is when it kind of starts to unravel with them.
So basically what happened was, the brain mapping is happening at, where is it, at Joel's house?
Yeah, it's at his apartment. Yeah.
Because it kind of threw me off how it started in the Lacuna offices, but then it transfers over to his couch, or his couch bed or whatever. So anyway, Patrick is like, I gotta go see like my unethicalness girlfriend. So Patrick leaves, and Kirsten Dunst is already over at this point, so she's hooking up with Mark Ruffalo, and then the subconscious, then Joel and Clem are taking over taking back their memories because they don't want them to be erased, and it's fucking up the whole data tech science part of it. So Mark Ruffalo calls the doctor who oversees the whole thing in the middle of the night. So they call in the middle of the night, and I knew there was something really, I picked up on this, that even the wife was like, what is happening? And so then the doctor comes over and they try to remap everything. They're like, oh, we got everything back up and running, only to find that Joel and Clem take it back again. They're going back and forth. So this is after Kirsten Dunst and Mark Ruffalo hook up, and then Mark Ruffalo goes out to the car for something. I can't remember what. And the doctor's there and Kirsten Dunst is there, and they're exchanging like famous quotes. One of them was like Nietzsche's, "Blessed are the forgetful, for they get the better even of their blunders." They're going back and forth with that, and then she kisses him, and then he's like, I'm married, I have kids, blah, blah, blah. But then they keep kissing. Doctor's wife pulls up, sees them hooking up, and Mark Ruffalo is already upset because he literally just hooked up with the girl and actually really liked her. So she, the wife sees, they all come out, and she goes, this is just a stupid crush. It's just me. He pushed me away. Please have him. Take him back. And the wife goes, he's all yours, or you already have. And that's when it clicked that that's when she finds out they already had an affair. And the doctor, there's the unethics there. The doctor, I feel like, experimented on her first, like patient zero, to see if this would work. And he knew the whole time. He didn't do it to himself. He knew the whole time. And Kirsten Dunst's character found out about it. And then this is like where everything starts spiraling, takes all his client information and gives it. And it's not like HIPAA. She doesn't violate HIPAA in sense of sharing all the information. She's returning the information back to the rightful owners.
There's just so much to unpack, because we get, and I was talking about this with you earlier, we get Kirsten, we get her tape. So we get her, she was not forced into giving up her memomories, right? This is not that. This is not that situation.
No. She wanted to. She was like, I
can't live without you type situation. That's what this was, because they knew it was wrong. That's what this was. And we get that through her tape, but she is still just beyond, and like rightfully so. Like, yeah, but it's weird because it's just weird, right? Like, it's a weird situation.
But so that happens. She starts giving back everybody their tapes, and now we're full circle and we're back to the quote unquote beginning of the movie. And at this point, Joel and Clementine, they just kind of spent the night out. They just wanted to be together. Their day wasn't over. Their night wasn't over. They still wanted to spend time together. So Joel's bringing Clem back to her house, and he's like, come on, you're home. And she goes, I'm still so tired. Can I sleep at your house? Let me just grab my toothbrush. So she goes into her house, grabs her toothbrush, grabs her mail, and she's like, oh, this is weird. I got this letter. So she doesn't even remember Lacuna at all, and pops the tape in, and Joel's a little bit weirded out because
Rightfully
obviously so. He's like, is this a fucking prank? Like, what the hell is this? Kicks her out because they just had this whole wonderful night, and I'm not a stranger and I'm not a stalker. They had all these jokey conversations. Now everything's on tape of like how much she doesn't like this person that she's sitting next to right now. And she's just as confused. And then again, we come back to another full circle moment from the beginning of the movie where he goes home and finds the Lacuna letter that we see him holding when he's talking to his friends about the gift. So he never opened it in that moment. And I'm sorry, I'm like really I'm like really into it. So then he hears it, and she goes over to his house after hearing her own tape, and she's hearing all the things that are being said that he was telling the scientists and therapists.
Oh, so I'm going to back you up a little bit.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. I want to go to the day that they met. The day that they met, she has green hair. The day that they met is he goes to the party, and he sees her in the distance, and she's in an orange sweatshirt, and she goes and sits next to him and like borrows his chicken, and they have this like connection, right?
He already has a significant other at this point.
He's with Naomi at this point. And he has this like moment where they're just like talking, right? They're just talking.
Yeah,
and,
they're not doing anything.
Yeah, he's like, and Clementine, he's like, and I thought your name was magical. And it was just like this, it's just really good. It's really good. And so what do they do? So they go to the Montauk house. This is this like fantastic scene. They go to the Montauk house, and we get like what actually happened to a point, and then we get Kate, and then she's like, I came back downstairs and you weren't there, and Joel's like, you freaked me out, like I thought you were crazy. I think the quote is like, I thought you were a nut. I was scared, and I walked out. And she's like, and you left, like, why did you go? Was it something I said? And Joel's like, yeah, you said, so go, with such disdain. He's like, and I was scared. I felt like a little kid. I was over my head. And it's so interesting because then we get the scene where like the waves are coming in and the house is crashing down, because this is it. This is the last memory that they have together. And then she says like, come back, like give me a goodbye. He's like, I can't, like I left. There is no memory. And she's like, well, we'll just make one. We'll make one just like right now. And then she's like, what if you stayed? Meet me in Montauk. And she says that. And then that's how it starts. He wakes up the next day, and then he goes. It's just so good. And he says like, she was just this girl, driving back in the car with his friends. She was nice. It's just so wonderful. And this is my last page of notes. So you mentioned that they have this wonderful night on the lake together. And that image of them on the lake with the crack is like iconic.
I mean, how telling, right? Seeing that huge crack, and that's where they are positioned. Yeah. I mean, the storytelling is in every frame, it feels, of this movie.
It's beautiful. It's just so, so beautiful. I really, really love that the things that as you said, like they hear each other's tapes, and what they say is like fucking vicious, right? Like, he's boring. He changed me. Like, I hate that. And he's like, she's dumb. I hated how she said library. I couldn't take her out in public. I thought she would change my life. I thought she was this like burning meteorite that would just like, take me and make my life interesting. And she's not. She's just this like broken girl, who's like desperate and insecure. Right. And it's just like, whoa. And they hear each
saying the worst,
things, like the worst things. And she's also saying like really awful things. Oh
yeah. They
like,
both are.
Yeah. like, oh my God. And then, as you said, it ends where they both hear this stuff about each other, and they're just like, I don't care. Like, I still want to try. So like that is where it's like, is this like a sad, depressing movie? I don't think so. I think this is like this beautiful kind of movie about fate and how like people will like come back to it. You know what I mean?
I put in my notes, they re-met despite their entire memory loss, and they still have a connection.
Yeah, they still have a connection. And it's just like knowing that if they don't change who they are, they're doomed. They're still going to try again. And it's already started out different. And they have like all of this stuff. It's like already different, like I just find it so beautiful and so real. It's so good. So I watched this on I try to watch this on Valentine's Day every day, but there was availability issues when I was abroad. But
this is like your annual V-Day watch?
Yeah, and it's a movie that is like it's not a typical like Valentine's Day movie, but it gives me the same feeling that Moulin Rouge gives me, where it's like an emotional journey, but at the end of it, you're like a little bit kind of like, but you're still thinking about it. And that's what I want, especially on like a Valentine's Day where, you never know, right? Like it could go either way. And this is just this beautiful, creative love story that I don't know. I
don't feel like it's this, and I guess some people will be like, is this a movie about hope? Is this a sad movie? I don't feel like it's a sad movie. There is hope. It's beautifully told. I think I told you when I was going to watch this, and I was just going to watch this once, and then we were going, do whatever we need to do, how we usually do our episodes. And then you said, rewatch it if you get a chance. What I did was the second the credits started rolling, I started it immediately after. And that might seem a little much, but I feel like there's so much you can connect. If you liked it, first you have to like it to go back, and especially like how like it's a very niche stylistic approach in the cinematography. So if you enjoy that type of style, then it's easy to go back in, and not even 5 minutes into, we don't even know the title of the movie yet, essentially. He says this line of, he's writing in his journal, and he says, I guess it's been 2 years since they've written in here. Oh, that's weird. I ripped a couple pages out. I don't remember doing that. But because I had already done the first watch, I know exactly why the 2 pages are there. It's just that connection of how intertwined and how, what's the word that I'm looking for? Aware of how everything is connected and everything plays a part in the overall story. I think I wouldn't have necessarily picked up on it if I did a rewatch a couple months from now. Yeah.
It's really one of those things where you do absolutely benefit from an immediate rewatch because, as you said, it pays off immediately. And it just kind of solidifies the story for you, and it solidifies the timeline for you. Right. Because like the timeline's a bitch the first time through. Like, you really kind of have to look.
And you have to watch. This isn't like a half-assed, I'm going to play on my phone and scroll social while watching this, because everything is very intentional throughout this.
Absolutely. And it's a lot of like handy cam. You can tell, like, you know, there's somebody there, like on the shots and stuff. And it's just so good. And the colors in this movie just really pop. And that has to be intentional because we track the relationship through her hair colors. But gosh, you know, I scoured the world for an orange sweatshirt for a few years, like after this came out. And I never found one that was quite the right shade, but like, damn, did I try. I love this movie. This is my favorite Jim Carrey movie. And, you know, I say that being very familiar with his catalog. Is it my favorite Kate Winslet movie? Yeah, probably. I have read that this is her favorite role. So, you know, if this is her favorite role, then damn, you know, who am I to say? I love it. It is so original. And I have actually never met anyone besides friend of show Rachel and friend of show Becky that have seen this movie.
I had never even heard of it till you said, oh, you know, this would be a good like Valentine's Day episode to cover. And I looked at you like, I've never heard of this movie at all. And you looked at me like I had three heads. And I mean, I think it's just whatever I was going through in 2005. It wasn't even on my catalog. It wasn't even on my radar. I was probably watching Mandy Moore and fucking Free Liberty or something.
Very different experiences in 2005.
Very different, but I'm so appreciative because I love that this did make me think.
It did. It makes you think. It makes you, all the things.
And I feel like, this is also, you know, we always talk about revisiting certain things as we're older, or even when we're older, we have new life experiences since like the initial time you may have consumed media, like whatever you're watching or reading or anything. So it feels so, you understand, like, I was watching it and I feel like it was just such a mature take and just balancing out both and then understanding, you know, even them in their most emotional, volatile, hurtful versions of themselves, they recognized, wait, I don't want to forget all of this. And unfortunately, they still do.
Yeah, that's the tragedy of it. Like, they do. It happens. They don't win the fight. Although you could argue, but like, did they? Because they did re-meet the next day after Joel. But like, no.
But they re-met with like a blank slate.
Yeah.
And then learned about then they learned about the traumas that happened. Oh my God. It's like Simon. It's like they're learning the traumas, but they don't have the emotional memory. Oh. I'm not going to cry.
I would just like to point out that when I said that I would address something that I was thinking about later, this is that thing that she got to on her own. We are so proud of you. Look at you.
Oh, I'm trying not to cry. Oh, it's so upsetting. I'm fine. Just keep talking.
No, I will not try to connect everything to Shadowhunters, but this was just like one of those really interesting things when we're talking about like memory and trauma and not having an emotional connection behind it. And then
But knowing it's there,
and then deciding to do it anyway because you still have chemistry with the person. There you go. You got there on your own.
This. I'm watching this.
It's so great.
Live.
It's so great. It's so great. So to answer your question that you posed to everybody at the beginning of the episode, would I go through this procedure? No, I would not, because I would make my best art when I'm sad. So no, I would not. I would always keep.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially like these specific memories that just people in general are trying to delete. Of course, in those moments, it's easy, you know, make the impulsive decision, if you will. But who you are now is based on the worst moments of your life also.
So, Jess, will you recommend this to people?
Yeah, I want to watch it with my I want to watch it with my family because I think they'd be like, what are we watching?
Like, what
but
is
also
this?
I feel I'm ready to watch it next weekend.
Yeah, it's so good, and it brings like all the emotions, right? Like all the emotions. It's just so wonderful. So I mentioned that my favorite scene is the under the blanket scene, the I'm pretty scene. Do you have a favorite?
I don't want to say I don't have a favorite yet. I feel like I'm still taking it all in.
This is fair. This is absolutely fair. I know, and I did say that I don't read anything about this. This is true, but I have looked at like Rotten Tomato. Like this is more or less like universally loved. Like this is a fantastic movie.
Well, I was looking, and we'll post them in the show notes. I was looking up articles initially because, Laura's the expert. She's the connoisseur in this movie. So I felt like I needed to research like I always do. And I had read the Looper article with all the behind the scenes, and also very sad, like how they basically, I feel like they emotionally abused Jim Carrey in taking this. That's just my opinion based on the background information on that article. And then there was an article on Screen Rant, again, show notes. I read the headline. The headline says Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, ending and it's ending and real meaning explained. And just the headline alone, I didn't want to go further because I didn't want to discuss, like I wanted to discuss our experiences watching it, not the quote unquote real meaning, because this is going to sound pretentious. I'm sorry, but like art is all about perception. So how one person is going to perceive and film and movies is a type of art, I didn't want that to be skewed based on an article. And that's why I think I go into a lot of things blind too, because everybody's a critic. Everybody's going to have their own opinion, but somebody's opinion shouldn't alter mine.
And especially too, like, people have a really set in stone opinion of Jim Carrey. Like,
yeah,
there is not a lot of like mind changing you can do with Jim Carrey. People either respect him as a dramatic, like, actor for, Man on the Moon and The Truman Show and this, or they don't, because, it's like kind of one or the other. So yeah, I could never, but I do know that, like Rotten Tomatoes, this is great. Like people love this. There is not a lot you can say. It won an Oscar for original screenplay. Kate was up, I believe, for an Oscar. She did not win.
How could she not even be nominated? Like this film screams award season.
It does. And, no love for Jim Carrey here. And it's just a shame, because he's just so fantastic.
This was a good role.
It's a good.
I mean, granted, like I said, I never saw Man on the Moon, but I can't imagine why he wouldn't have been nominated.
It's just wonderful.
This is easily my favorite role of his.
Yeah,
and The Grinch.
Easily. Well, yeah. Well, the Grinch is different. The Grinch is different.
But that's like they're two very, very different.
Well, that's range. That's
right.
range.
Right.
No, so fantastic. I just love this movie. I would love for more people to watch this movie so we can get some like merch on this. There's stuff out there, but a little bit more would be great. Yeah, that's all I've got. Just watch it, love it, and I believe it's about hope and about fate, and that's what I choose to believe.
And also, like, if you haven't watched it and you choose to watch it after listening to this, know that even though we kind of went through the movie, it's not really spoilery, because watching it and experiencing it, even though you might know the outcome, it's going to be very different once you actually expose yourself to it. I think that's important to know, because it's like sometimes if you get spoiled, you're like, oh, I don't want to watch it anymore. But like, the visual experience and like the story itself, the way it unfolds is, I don't know. I think you have to, even after hearing this, you could watch it and be like, wait, now that I could kind of see where Jessica and Laura are coming from.
Well, Jess, would you get your memories removed?
No.
I
thought I was watching it at the beginning and I was thinking I probably would I have gotten it at my lowest, worst part of my life? in a rash decision, I might have. But again, in the lowest, most rash part of my life, I bought, I planned a vacation to Europe. So like that seemed a little bit healthier. But I go back to what I had said a little bit ago is who you are now is like, it's also built off of those worst moments, not just the good. And you're not going to learn anything if you don't keep the bad also.
Words to live by. Words to live by.
Thank you for listening, of course, and feel free to follow us on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. And if you feel ever so kind, please feel free to rate us on Apple Podcast or wherever your listening platform allows ratings.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. And we love doing little movie reviews. Let us know.
Bye.